Hi, friends. Welcome to Pieces Here. I'm Avis Kalfsbeek, and we're taking a little rest between podcast series to help Kitty O'Compost improve her reporter voice for peace. Kitty is a character I made up who's a little offbeat, a satiric smarty pants, and she's getting ready to report on a big story about peace, AI, and the future of the commons. At the end of these Kitty Reads episodes, and maybe longer, you'll also hear the Next Peacelands, a roll call of global armed conflicts and arms exports. If that's too much for today, it's okay to end early. But if you can stay, I hope you'll let it deepen your resolve for peace. As usual, you can find the words and books I make for peace at aviskalfsbeek.com, and podcast music is by the talented Javier Peque Rodriguez. Listen for the peace. Now over to Kitty. Today's reading comes from Edgar Allan Poe, a writer most folks think of for shadows and whispers and things hiding under the floorboards, bless his heart. But he also had a playful, curious streak when the mood struck him. He was a master at bending the edges of possibility, mixing his fierce imagination with just enough careful scientific detail to make even the strangest adventure feel almost believable. He knew how to sell a story, that one. We're looking at the unparalleled adventure of one Hans Pfaall, which is one of his lighter, almost whimsical tales. It's the story of a Dutchman, a fellow who owes a lot of money, and his frantic, funny journey in a handmade airship, determined to lift himself right out of his ordinary, complicated life and head for the moon. It's a wonderful piece of early science fiction, looking past the known world for a fresh start. We'll read only a small piece today, just enough to catch the clever tilt of Poe's inventive, mischievous side and see how he could turn a story of escape into a grand, charming yarn. Well, darling, I could read a dusty sonnet or the birthday card someone left in my mailbox by mistake. Either way, it's a chance to settle ourselves and remember that nobody, for goodness sake, is holding a gosh darn gun. Following is an excerpt from The Unparalleled Adventure of One Hans Pfaall by Edgar Allan Poe. By the late accounts from Rotterdam, that city seems to be in a high state of philosophical excitement. Indeed, phenomena have there occurred of a nature so completely unexpected, so entirely novel, so utterly at variance with preconceived opinions, that's tail scratching, as to leave no doubt on my mind that long ere this all Europe is in an uproar, all physics in a ferment, all reason and astronomy together by the ears. It appears that on the day of blank, I am not positive about the date, a vast crowd of people, for purposes not specifically mentioned, were assembled in the great square of the exchange in the well-conditioned city of Rotterdam. The day was warm, unusually so for the season. There was hardly a breath of air stirring, and the multitude were in no bad humor at being now and then besprinkled with friendly showers of momentary duration that fell from large white masses of cloud which checkered in a fitful manner the blue vault of the firmament. Nevertheless, about noon, a slight but remarkable agitation became apparent in the assembly. The clattering of 10,000 tongues succeeded, and in an instant afterward 10,000 faces were upturned toward the heavens. 10,000 pipes descended simultaneously from the corners of 10,000 mouths, and a shout which could be compared to nothing but the roaring of Niagara resounded long, loudly, and furiously through all the environs of Rotterdam. The origin of this hubbub soon became sufficiently evident. From behind the bulk of one of those sharply defined masses of cloud already mentioned was seen slowly to emerge into an open area of blue space a queer, heterogeneous, but apparently solid substance, so oddly shaped, so whimsically put together, as not to be in any manner comprehended, and never to be sufficiently admired by the host of sturdy burghers who stood open-mouthed below. What could it be? In the name of all the vrouws and devils in Rotterdam, what could it possibly portend? No one knew, no one could imagine. No one, not even the burgomaster, Meneer Superbus von Underduke, had the slightest clue by which to unravel the mystery. So as nothing more reasonable could be done, every one to a man replaced his pipe carefully in the corner of his mouth, and cocking up his right eye towards the phenomenon, puffed, paused, waddled about, and grunted significantly, then waddled back, grunted, paused, and finally puffed again. In the meantime, however, lower and still lower toward the goodly city came the object of so much curiosity and the cause of so much smoke. In a very few minutes it arrived near enough to be accurately discerned. It appeared to be, yes, it was undoubtedly a species of balloon, but surely no such balloon had ever been seen in Rotterdam before. For who, let me ask, ever heard of a balloon manufactured entirely of dirty newspapers? No man in Holland, certainly, yet here, under the very noses of the people, or rather at some distance above their noses, was the identical thing in question, and composed, I have it on best authority, of the precise material which no one had ever before known to be used for a similar purpose. It was an egregious insult to the good sense of the burghers of Rotterdam. As to the shape of the phenomenon, it was even still more reprehensible, being little or nothing better than a huge foolscap turned upside down. And this similitude was regarded as by no means lessened when, upon nearer inspection, there was perceived a large tassel depending from its apex, and around the upper rim or base of the cone a circle of instruments resembling sheep bells, which kept up a continual tinkling to the tune of Betty Martin. But still worse, suspended by blue ribbons to the end of this fantastic machine, there hung, by way of car, an enormous drab beaver hat, with brim superlatively broad, and a hemispherical crown with a black band and a silver buckle. It is, however, somewhat remarkable that many citizens of Rotterdam swore to having seen the same hat repeatedly before, and indeed the whole assembly seemed to regard it with eyes of familiarity, while the Vrouw Gretel Pfaall, upon sight of it, uttered an exclamation of joyful surprise, and declared it to be the identical hat of her good man himself. Now this was a circumstance the more to be observed, as Pfaall had 3 companions, had actually disappeared from Rotterdam about 5 years before in a very sudden and unaccountable manner, and up to the date of this narrative all attempts had failed of obtaining any intelligence concerning them whatsoever. To be sure, some bones which were thought to be human, mixed up with a quantity of odd-looking rubbish, had been lately discovered in a retired situation to the east of Rotterdam, and some people went so far as to imagine that in this spot a foul murder had been committed, and that the sufferers were in all probability Hans Pfaall and his associates. But to return. The balloon, for such no doubt it was, had now descended to within 100 feet of the earth, allowing the crowd below a sufficiently distinct view of the person of its occupant. This was in truth a very droll little somebody. He could not have been more than 2 feet in height, but this altitude, little as it was, would have been sufficient to destroy his equilibrium and tilt him over the edge of his tiny car, but for the intervention of a circular rim reaching as high as the breast and rigged on to the cords of the balloon. The body of the little man was more than proportionately broad, giving to his entire figure a rotundity highly absurd. His feet, of course, could not be seen at all, although a horny substance of suspicious nature was occasionally protruded through a rent in the bottom of the car, or, so to speak more properly, in the top of the hat. His hands were enormously large, his hair was extremely grey and collected into a queue behind. His nose was prodigiously long, crooked, and inflammatory, his eyes full, brilliant, and acute. His chin and cheeks, although wrinkled with age, were broad, puffy, and double, but of ease of any kind or character there was not a semblance to be discovered upon any portion of his head. This odd little gentleman was dressed in a loose surtout of sky-blue satin, with tight breeches to match, fastened with silver buckles at the knees. His vest was of some bright yellow material, a white taffety cap was set jauntily on one side of his head, and to complete his equipment, a blood-red silk handkerchief enveloped his throat and fell down in a dainty manner upon his bosom in a fantastic bowknot of supereminent dimensions. Thank you for listening and allowing me to practice Kitty's reporting voice for the big story ahead. Now stay with me a few minutes longer if you're able for the Next Peacelands. Podcasts usually have ads you fast forward through. This one doesn't. Instead, I invite you to pause here just for a few minutes and listen with an open heart, not to memorize the numbers, not to analyze the politics. As I read each conflict, I'll say aloud, "Peace is here." You're welcome to say it with me or just think it quietly. If you'd like to read, sing, or paint your own version of the Next Peacelands, or tell me how to say peace is here in your language, I'd love to hear it. This is the Next Peacelands. Not for doom and gloom, not for pity or sadness, we speak and we listen to these geographic locations of wars and the numbers of deaths of human souls to help put the great disarmament, the period in which we live now, and peace at the forefront of our daily consciousness and actions. Following are the major and minor armed conflicts, each with over 1,000 deaths in the current year, based on the data available as of December 2025. Russo-Ukrainian War since 2014, 400,000 cumulative fatalities, 69,177 deaths year to date. Peace is here. Arab-Israeli conflict since 1948, 263,000 cumulative fatalities, 25,100 deaths year to date. Peace is here. Sudanese conflicts since 2008, 1,400,000 cumulative fatalities, 19,867 deaths year to date. Peace is here. Islamist insurgencies in the Maghreb Sahel since 2002, 464,000 cumulative fatalities, 19,069 deaths year to date. Peace is here. Myanmar conflicts since 1948, 199,000 cumulative fatalities, 13,411 deaths year to date. Peace is here. Mexican drug war since 2006, 417,000 cumulative fatalities, 7,790 deaths year to date. Peace is here. Congolese conflicts since 1996, 211,600 cumulative fatalities, 6,860 deaths year to date. Peace is here. Ethiopian civil conflict since 2018, 610,000 cumulative fatalities, 5,563 deaths year to date. Peace is here. Somali civil war since 1991, over 1 million cumulative fatalities, 9,872 deaths year to date. Peace is here. Syrian conflict spillovers since 2011, 656,000 cumulative fatalities, 7,745 deaths year to date. Peace is here. Afghan conflict since 1978, 2,800,000 cumulative fatalities, 3,632 deaths year to date. Peace is here. Ecuadorian security crisis since 2018. 9,230 cumulative fatalities, 2,740 deaths year to date. Peace is here. Yemeni civil war crisis since 2011, 382,000 cumulative fatalities, 2,598 deaths year to date. Peace is here. Colombian-Venezuelan conflicts since 1964, 457,000 cumulative fatalities, 2,482 deaths year to date. Peace is here. Haitian crisis since 2018, 20,000 cumulative fatalities, 2,480 deaths year to date. Peace is here. Does that mean the countries that weren't mentioned are more peaceful? Some are, some are not. Here are the world's largest weapons exporters according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute's Arms Transfers Database. These numbers use TIV, the Trend Indicator Value, a measure based on the production cost of military equipment. The cumulative TIV figures you will hear represent the total volume of military resources transferred since 1950, while the percentage is based on the most recent 5-year trend. United States, cumulative exports of $729 billion, accounting for 43% of total global exports. Peace is here. France, cumulative exports of $136 billion, 9.6% of total global exports. Peace is here. Russia, cumulative exports of $155 billion, 7.8% of total global exports. Peace is here. China, cumulative exports of $61 billion, 6% of total global exports. Peace is here. Germany, cumulative exports of $90 billion, 5.6% of total global exports. Peace is here. Italy, cumulative exports of $37 billion, 4.8% of total global exports. Peace is here. United Kingdom, cumulative exports of $144 billion, 3.6% of total global exports. Peace is here.